James Lynch here for Home of Fight. Happy to be joined by Grant Dawson, who's going to be taking on Diego Ferreira at UFC 311 on January 18th. Grant, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. I appreciate you having me on as always.
Yeah, of course. And you two have a bit of history. I know you were supposed to fight him, I think, in 2021. And I know I think even in between there, I know that you wanted to fight him. So how happy are you that, hopefully, knock on wood, everything happens for fight day at 311?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident everybody's going to show up happy and healthy. So I'm good with it. I don't necessarily want to fight Diego. It's not like he's somebody I've been going after. We've been set to fight like 3 or 4 times, and it just didn't work out. There were a couple of times he had to back out. There's a couple of times I had to back out, and it's all good. I'm ready to get going, man. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to keep building on the momentum that I got in the Hoffa Garcia fight, and hopefully I can do that with Diego.
And how happy are you to be on this card? I mean, this looks like one of the most stacked pay-per-views of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a there's pros and cons to everything. Pro is a lot more eyes. Cons are almost zero chance of winning bonus money. So
Yeah.
that kind of sucks. Another big con is unless I hit like a Joaquin Buckley spinning back kick knockout, no matter how good my performance is, it's probably going to be forgotten in the next 2 fights because every fight is going to be amazing. So, the pros and cons. Hopefully everybody gives me a follow directly after my fight, so they don't forget about me. But yeah, we're good, man. A win's a win.
Both of you have improved since 2021, since I referenced there. Diego's coming off a huge win himself, a fight that he was a big underdog in, taking out Rimbecki. How are you looking at him stylistically as far as what he brings to the table?
Yeah, he's a tough fight, man. He's a very, very difficult fight. His striking is very volume oriented, and he hits you at weird angles. But the thing that's most impressive with me is that he uses his jujitsu to get back to his feet. I tell these guys all the time, if you're a jujitsu guy that is struggling with wrestlers and getting held down, watch Diego Ferreira because he uses his jujitsu really, really well to get back to his feet. I think I've got it figured out. I think I've got a plan for it on the ground, but we're gonna find out. And God forbid if I can't hold him down, I'm willing to bite down on my mouthpiece and sling it out to get this victory.
And you're obviously have a good training partner for him as well, a fellow Brazilian, someone that's very good on the ground, in Thiago Moises. How good is it to have the Avengers back together?
Yeah, it's great. I got Thiago Moises. I got Dakota Bush, and then I have another teammate named JJ Wilson, and he
Oh
was an
yeah.
ADCC champion recently. So he's very, very talented on the ground. I actually think he's a better look for Diego than Diego is because his jujitsu is very scrambly, very dangerous on the ground, and he's very scrappy on the feet. They're very, very similar. So I've got the styles. I got matchups for him. I'm training very, very hard for this fight, and I am expecting the best Diego Ferreira.
Is Gamrot in camp with you or no? And the only reason I bring that up is because he fought Diego, obviously.
Yeah, he was here for the first like 2 weeks of my camp, and I got a lot of rounds with him and a lot of training in with him. But he lives in Poland. He's got family and kids that he wants to spend Christmas with. I don't have kids. My wife is my family, and I don't really go home for the holidays. So I'm good at fighting this time, but it is a little more difficult fighting. Beginning of January to find training partners because everybody's going home for the holidays.
Yeah. One thing I did want to ask you, because I've actually talked to both fighters already, is this obviously Thiago's fighting Trey Ogden. You used to train with Trey back in the day. Was there any hesitation working with Thiago, or is because it's been so long that you've been training what used to be Glory MMA that it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I've been working with Thiago for a long time. The way I see it is if Trey doesn't want me, training with Thiago, he shouldn't have taken the fight. And I don't think that Trey is the type of guy that cares. It's a business. It's a
Yeah.
business for Trey. It's a business for Thiago. And Thiago's my teammate. Trey's my friend, but I'm gonna help my teammate. And if he's got a really big issue with it, he shouldn't have taken the fight. But I
Well,
don't
no, he
think he
doesn't.
does.
I spoke to him, and he basically just said it's understandable because like you guys haven't trained together for a while or whatever. And he says like you guys aren't like great friends, but you're friendly, and like it's
Mhm.
but there was a lot of years there training. That's why like I'm one of those nerds when I look at a matchup like that. I'm like, oh yeah, they used to train together, and now you're training the other guy. I could see if you had just left the gym and then went to American Top Team, but it's been such a long time. I didn't think it was a thing, so that's why I just wanted
Yeah,
to ask about it.
and to be fair, Trey is probably a completely different fighter than he was when I trained with him. I know
Yeah.
that I'm a completely different fighter than when I trained with Trey. And if one of Trey's guys was, fighting me, like if one of Trey's guys was set to fight me,
Mhm.
he's gonna help him any way he can. And good for him. That's great. All the best. So yeah, there's really it's not even weird. Like it's not even
Yeah, it's
like
not a
a
thing. No,
weird
no,
thing.
for
It's
sure.
just business. It's just they're gonna go out there and they're gonna have fun. I don't think anybody's job is on the line.
No.
Nobody's getting cut after this fight. So I'm good with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point about like, yeah, like it's tough to get probably training partners and stuff. Is that something you keep in mind? I mean, obviously you want to keep active and fight, but is that another thing where like, man, it would have been better February. There'd be more people in the gym. I'm assuming that crossed your mind.
No, not really.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. My wife and I had our second wedding anniversary.
Mhm.
We got a phone call saying that we got the house that we wanted,
Mhm.
and we got a phone call saying that we got this fight all in the span of 10 minutes. So it was like one of those like big rush days where it was just like, we had all this stuff, all the endorphins going. So, I just bought a house. I need to fight. I want to fight. I want to keep the momentum going. And I tell you all the time, man, I want to be a 3-fight, 4-fight a year kind of guy. And it just hasn't happened for me. So no way am I turning down an early January fight because I actually think I might get in 3 fights this year. I'm sorry, in 2025. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. And then, how's the weight cut going during the holidays? Do you have to skip like Christmas and stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, we'll skip eating on Christmas. I did get to eat on Thanksgiving, and it didn't hurt my weight too bad. We're right where we normally are. I don't have easy weight cuts, but thanks to Eric Pena, I don't really have terrible weight cuts. It is a lot of weight, but it's very smooth, very very like, uh, yeah. I think if you're gonna have a bad weight cut, like this is the best weight cut you could have in my situation.
Okay. Your corner, who's going to be in the cage with you? Usually it's Thiago and Dakota Bush usually, right?
Yeah, so I have Mike Brown, Thiago Alves, and Dakota Bush.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. How's this one playing out? Because obviously Diego's a tough guy, but we have seen him finished as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, really tough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish him. Really,
Mhm.
honestly, he's never been submitted.
Mhm.
He's never even really been in a bad spot to get submitted. So we'll see. I definitely think that I'm going to come away with the win, but I really think that this is a much tougher fight than maybe the average fan thinks it is. But I also said that about the last one. I thought the last one was going to be a really tough fight. Mentally, I was really prepared to get beat up in my last fight and have to dig deep, and it just kind of didn't go that way. Thank God. But this one is going to be a tough one. I think he's the first guy that I've fought that gets better as the fight goes on, and I'm the same way. I get better as the fight goes on, and usually that's how I end up beating people. Is I take them down and I do a lot of work in the first round, and then as the rounds go on, they get tired and I get better. But he's going to get better as the rounds go on, so we're prepared for all of that.
I mentioned I spoke to Diego, and Diego's a really polite guy, and I think that's going to be like a fun build up to this fight. The one comment he did make, and I just wanted to get your response to it, he's like, I hope Grant doesn't make this boring, because I know a couple times you've gone the distance, and maybe people perceive that as being boring. Just your response to that, my very, like limited, like, kind of back and forth here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather win a boring fight than lose an exciting one. He's got a lot of exciting losses, so
There you
good
go.
for
A lot
him.
of exciting losses. Okay, we'll take that. Main event of your card, big one in your division. Islam Arman. I know Arman trains with you guys a little bit, but just your thoughts on that fight and how you think it'll unfold.
Yeah, I think I really think that Arman has what it takes to get it done. I don't think that Islam has looked great in his last couple of fights. A lot of people thought Alexander Volkanovski beat him. The first one, obviously, he
Mm.
dominated the second one, but in the first fight, and then in the Dustin Poirier fight, I had it 2-2 going into the fifth. And Dustin's not the kind of guy to ever make excuses, but I was there with him. I went through camp with him. He didn't really have a full camp. He didn't really, he took that fight somewhat on short notice for somebody that was taking a title fight. So I think that the weight cut is too much for Islam Makhachev. I really do. And he's in a tough spot because the champion at the weight class above him is his friend and teammate. So I totally get what he's doing. But I think Arman is going to have a really good weight cut, and he's got a very, very, very good chance of beating him right now. And to be honest with you, other than myself, I think Arman is the only guy that can really, really get it done in our weight class right now. Now, that doesn't mean that in a few years somebody else is going to break through, or somebody's going to have a big performance, or it's going to click. But as of right now, I think the two guys that pose the biggest threat to Islam Makhachev are Arman Tsarukyan and myself. And the only reason I say myself is because I've got such good top pressure. If I do get a takedown like Islam's been taken down in the past, I think I'm going to win a round.
Okay. So are you picking Arman, or you think Islam
I'm
wins?
picking Armin. Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep this on record, because if that happens, I mean, you're going to get a lot of credit here. So that's great.
Hmm. Well, I mean, he's my teammate, so
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can pick against teammate. Well, what about Moicano and Dariush? I know he's your teammate as well.
yeah, obviously that one's a little easier for me. That's Moicano. I think that Moicano is really coming into his zone. I think he's really coming into himself and into his prime. And he looks really good in the gym. And if you saw in his last fight, man, dude, he's been an underdog in his last two, I believe, against
Yeah, he
Jalen
has.
Turner and Benoit. And he's just proven everybody wrong, man. And it's not even it's not even like these are close fights. He's blowing these guys out of the water. And I know he got dropped in the Turner fight, but whoop de doo, he got hit in the face one time in a fist fight. Like he came back and half unconscious, demolished that guy. The dude's a stud. He's one of those guys that can beat anybody on any given night, and he's getting a lot better. He has a hole in his game that he is working on heavily, and it's really showing in the gym.
Okay, last time we did best pound for pound fighter, and this time we're going to do best grappler in UFC history, and I'm going to give you two names, and you have to tell me which you think has the better overall grappling career. You got a lot of submission wins. I figure this is a good one to start with. Okay, first two fighters: Khabib Nurmagomedov and George St. Pierre.
Khabib.
Khabib Nurmagomedov or Charles Oliveira.
Okay. I'm just gonna be picking Khabib this whole time, so it's
Yeah, that's
Khabib.
fine. That's fine. Let's keep going. Okay,
Yeah,
Khabib and so Khabib and Charles Oliveira.
Khabib.
Khabib and Daniel Cormier.
Khabib.
Habib and Damian Maia.
Khabib.
Habib and John Jones.
Khabib.
Habib and Demetrius Johnson.
Khabib.
There we go.
You're talking like just skill, right? You're not saying who would win.
No, I'm talking
Like,
about skill. No, not who
yeah,
would win. 'Cause that's
obviously
too hard.
John
Yeah.
Jones would beat Khabib
Yeah,
in a
of course,
fight.
of course, yes,
Of
yes,
course, but
yeah.
no.
I'm just talking
Khabib
strictly grappling, like their own division, their own what they've achieved, and all that. Yeah, of course, because I mean, yeah, it'd be too hard to do it that way, right? Because then,
no, for sure,
no
and
one could predict that.
it's 100% Khabib. He is the best grappler
Mhm.
in MMA. I think he has had the best MMA grappling there is. Nobody has won a round against him, in my opinion. I know there's a few judges that gave
T-Bow, yeah.
uh T-Bow didn't win a round.
No, but I think that was the closest fight he's had. I think if you look at
That's the closest fight he's had, but I'm
yeah.
talking like on actual paper, judges gave one round to Connor and one round to
Oh,
Justin
that's true.
Gaethje,
Yeah, you're right.
which
You're right.
is absolutely like
Yeah.
they actually gave him those rounds.
Yeah,
They weren't
that's right. That's
opinionary.
right. Yeah, I see what you
But
mean. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, dude, he's lost two rounds in his entire career, and both of them were really bad calls. Like, come on, man, he's the best, he's the greatest. And I just great example. Look, and Dustin's one of my friends. Like, I'm not throwing him under the bus or anything, but look at Islam is supposed to be Khabib 2.0, better Khabib. It's 2-2 going into the fifth with Dustin and Islam, and no offense to Dustin, he got beat pretty bad by Khabib. He's just got the best control and ground and pound in the game. He's the best. I actually just heard a story about him today. Chael Sonnen was talking about he was in a workout room with Khabib, and Khabib brought 5 training partners from Dagestan to train with him. And what they did was they were just wrestling, they were just rolling, doing submissions and stuff. And he goes with the first guy, and when the first guy says, "I've had enough, I'm done," he goes with the second guy, and when the second guy says, "I'm done, I've had enough," he goes through all the guys, like, just absolutely destroys them. And Chael was saying all these guys are laying on the ground exhausted, and Khabib's up walking around, man. Like, he's the best. He really is.
I can tell. Yeah, and I don't dispute any of that. I think you're absolutely right. Okay, back to you and your fight. It's a big year for you. You said you wanted to keep active. Actually, we just talked about this off air, but you got booted out of the rankings. What were your thoughts on that? Joel Alvarez getting your spot.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily disagree with it.
Mhm.
It's just the only thing, it's a little frustrating for me where it's like, Michael Chandler's 2-4 in the UFC. He's still in the rankings. I'm 10-1 in the UFC, and I have to like fight tooth and nail.
Mhm.
I don't have close fights, other than, me making a bad read against Bobby Green and him putting me down, which could have happened to anybody.
Mhm.
It's really frustrating, you know, it's really frustrating putting on these shows. And like, no offense to Joel Alvarez, I think he deserves to be in the rankings right now. I think there's other guys that don't. Like, I've beaten a guy that's beaten Joel Alvarez. It's just I train with a guy that beats Joe Alvarez. Like it's frustrating to be in and then out and then in and then out because I'm literally like, okay, I'm number 15. I beat Diego. I'm probably gonna get a top 10 guy. Now I'm like, well, I beat Diego. I'm probably gonna get a top 15. I'm probably gonna get Benoit or somebody or Turner or somebody farther away. You know, I want to beat somebody that puts me into the top 15 and keeps me there. You
Yeah.
know, Rafael Fiziev is hasn't won a fight in like 3 years and he's still in there. Michael Chandler is god awful and he's still in there. It's just it's really frustrating seeing these guys. I take one loss and I get booted from the top 15. These guys take 5, 6 losses and nobody cares. It's just it's really frustrating.
Have
You
we
know?
talked about this before? But I think that if you haven't fought in a year or you've been like really inactive, you should be out of the rankings. They should just remember where you were when you took them out. But like, I think because kind of also what you're saying here as well is that like people who are active, you might lose a fight if you're more active than someone else, but someone who's not active like Chandler and, you know, is sort of being rewarded for not fighting. And granted, circumstances are different with him fighting Conor and all that. But like even someone like Dominic Cruz just recently got out of the rankings, but he hadn't fought in like a couple of years. Like I think it should be like a year minimum. If you haven't fought, they should take you out and reward people for activity. What do you think of that?
I'm in. I think the only exception should be if you're the champion.
Right. Yeah. Champ's a different story. But then in that case, they would vacate the title or do an interim anyways, right? They like Jamal Hill did that. Yuri did that too, right? So.
Yeah, and it's also it's frustrating to see where it's like you have these rankings and you like I'm not upset about Joel Alvarez
Yeah.
being in the top 15. The dude is 22-3 with 22 finishes.
Mhm.
He deserves to be higher than just number 15. Then you have Michael Chandler who's like 40 years old. He's got 2 wins and 4 losses in the UFC. And everybody's like they're the good guys. I totally get it. We all fight good guys.
Mhm.
I get it, but he's not a great fighter. Like he's not top 50. He's not going to make a run for the title.
Mhm.
Michael Chandler is not fighting for the belt again.
Mhm.
Like it just does not make any sense. He got out grappled. He got out wrestled by a jujitsu guy. Like it's he's not fighting Islam Makhachev. So and here's what pisses me off about it. I know I'm talking a lot about
No,
this,
no, no.
but
Go,
here's
go
what
ahead. Go ahead.
pisses me off. This is what pisses me off about it. Guys like Michael Chandler and Max Holloway are too big of names to be fighting people like me and fighting people like, you know, even Joel Alvarez. Like
Mhm.
me and Joel Alvarez, who are like 15 and 16, are not going to get to fight Michael Chandler. So what's the point of even having Michael Chandler in these rankings? Like,
Yeah,
what's the
I see
point
what
of
you mean.
even having
Yeah.
like I can't work my way up. I'm never going to be able to fight past Michael Chandler because he's never gonna. He's waiting 2.5 years again to fight Conor McGregor, which is never going to happen.
Mhm.
Like get him out of the rankings. He's never going to fight for the belt again. He's never going to, you know, make a run. His 2 wins are Dan Hooker in Abu Dhabi
Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson on his 7th loss in a row. Like this is the guy. This is the guy that you think is number 6 in the world. You really think this guy is number 6 in the world? Get out of here, man.
Michael Chandler will not be getting a Christmas card from Grant Dawson this year. I don't think so. Yeah.
You know
No,
what the
no, no,
crazy
no.
thing is?
Yeah.
I'm one of Michael Chandler's biggest fans. As a kid, I watched all of his fights growing
Yeah.
up. It
Missouri guy
just
too. Yeah.
it a Missouri guy. He's always been super respect. I have nothing against Michael Chandler the person. I have nothing against Michael Chandler the fighter. I'm upset that I'm 10-1 in the UFC. He's 2-4 in the UFC, and because he fought in the B leagues, he's
Yeah.
he's
I see
he's
what you're
ranked
saying.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, I get it. I get it. Makes sense. No, no, I like that. Hey, listen, be honest with me. I was like hearing that. Okay, a couple quick things before we get out of here. We're coming up to the year end stuff. You know, as far as like looking back on the year, is your fighter of the year? Who would you pick as your fighter of the year? I was curious about that. Putting you on the spot.
Man, it's either a tie. It's got to be, man.
I'll tell you who
For me,
mine is. I'll tell you mine
it's
is.
either Ilia Taporia or Alex Ferreira
Yeah.
and Pereira,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go with Alex just because he's fought more times. Ilia knocking out Max, unbelievable. Really, really cool. Knocking out Alex was or
Yeah, he knocked out Volk and he knocked out
he knocked
Holloway.
out Volk this year. That
Yeah.
was this year.
Yeah, that was this year.
Yeah. So that two goats right there, two goats that's awesome. But I gotta go Alex. Who's yours?
Mine's Taporia because I think that the 2 wins that Taporia had were much bigger than the 3 wins that. Because let's be honest, Khalil Roundtree shouldn't have got that title shot. Right. So
I mean,
if you're adding that in, and then he defeats a guy he already defeated in November in Yuri. So that, like, I know, I realize it's nitpicking, and I know the Pereira fans are going to come after me for saying that, but I think like it does not get any bigger than knocking out Alex Volkanovski and knocking out Max Holloway, in my opinion. And Alex Pereira's not going on the field at Real Madrid, right? Like that's like Conor McGregor level stuff. So that's another thing I factored in, like the popularity of how Topuria's star rose this year makes him the fighter of the year. Like Masvidal was like the guy in 2019, right? Like remember he was like, he got the BMF title and all that. Like that's when I think of fighter of the year. I think it's not just the performances. It's like, how did you impact the UFC? And I feel like Topuria really did that in a big way this year. So did Pereira, but if there's no Ilia Topuria, Alex Pereira is the fight of the year. But I think that Topuria's earned his right to be.
You know, I mean, it's very rarely that you have two guys that disagree on an answer, but both are right. You know,
Yeah,
like
no,
it's,
yeah.
I don't disagree with you. Like you could, and the only person to ever knock out Max Holloway, that goes a long way for me.
Exactly.
A
Yeah.
long
That was
way
another
for
thing
me.
too. Okay.
But it's just for me too. The real quick, the cards that Alex saved, right? He saved UFC. Was it 300?
Yeah, it was 300 because
yeah.
they did him and Jamal. That was supposed to be, I think, in Brazil, the card after, and then they moved it back,
Right.
and then the Yuri fight, and then Utah obviously saved that, right? For
yeah. So he's saving these cards, and he's not coming in on, you know, what a lot of people would consider short notice for a champion, and just squeaking out these wins. You know, he's going out and he's beating these top contenders. You know,
that's fair.
And at light heavyweight, correct me if I'm wrong, other than Khalil Roundtree, I want to make sure he's only beaten former champions or champions, correct?
Yeah.
Jan Blachowicz.
Jan Jamal
was a champion.
Yeah, Jamal was a champ, and then
Yuri twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you're kind of like, oh well, you know, Khalil Roundtree didn't deserve it. I agree with you. Khalil Roundtree probably didn't deserve that. However, Alex beat all the other champions, and
yeah, but like one-time champions. So if you want to get nitty-gritty, Max and Volk had multiple title defenses, right? At least with Yuri and Jamal, they were like one-offs. And granted, that, I mean, there's some circumstances around that we could dig into, like the injuries and all that stuff too. But I think that, like, again, if we're looking at like the greatest featherweights of all time, you're going to have Volk and Max there, and Topuria knocked both of them out. Like that's super impressive. And I know you could say, oh well, he fought Islam earlier and maybe he wasn't ready to come back, all that stuff. I'm here for those arguments too, but I just think that like those are like two, like I don't know of two better back-to-back wins like that you could name for any fighter. Like that's pretty incredible to finish them. And that's nothing against Yuri and Jamal. I'm just saying that like they don't have the longevity in the division that like Max and Volk did. So anyways,
yeah, I agree, but just real quick argument. Who would you have given Alex? Like, if you're like, okay, give him a long-time champion, who would that have been?
There isn't anyone in the division. Well, exactly. No, that's true. And it's not his fault. I'm not saying it's Pereira's fault. I'm just saying that like, you know, that
you could also argue. I'm not saying that 205 is a tougher weight class than 145. That would absolutely be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you could also argue that like there aren't other than John Jones, obviously, there aren't long-term champions in 205 because there's more danger involved at 205. Like
that's
people
fair.
get clipped a lot easier at 205 than they do at 145.
Yeah, like you said, we're both right here, so I don't think there's any.
No, I agree.
Any debate there. Okay, I was going to ask you some other stuff, but we're out of time here. Just quickly, your holidays. What are you getting up to?
I'm going back to Nebraska.
You're going home. Nice. Okay.
Well, my brother is getting married on Saturday, so we're leaving Friday.
Oh, awesome.
Going to the wedding on Saturday and coming back Sunday, and then that's it. And then we'll be here for the holidays. I'm training.
Yeah, well, it's great that you're married to a fellow fighter because that probably makes it a little bit easier to navigate through all that.
Way easier.
Yeah, that's great. And by the way, glad to hear she's doing better. I saw the health stuff that she was posting, so hopefully she's on the road to recovery with that. So.
Yeah, I think she'll fight again next year. So that's what we're hoping for.
Grant, this was fun, man. Thanks for doing this. You're getting that media training there over for my guy Dave Van Auken, so it's paying off here. We're doing this nice debate here, but let everyone know where they can get a hold of you, social media, any sponsors, anything like that. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, guys, just follow me on Instagram. I'm really trying to build my Instagram. I'm really trying to build my social media. So just that's the place to get me. If you guys got questions or inquiries or want to just chat, that's where to go is my Instagram, Grant Dawson, or Grant KGD Dawson. So hit me up.